My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I am 28 years old. Standing alone in my empty apartment on March 15th, I stared at my phone's screen showing 0 missed calls, 0 text messages, 0 birthday wishes. For 30 years, my family had forgotten my birthday. Every single year, I watched the date pass in complete silence while my heart broke a little more. I had convinced myself that I was invisible, unwanted, unloved. But today, everything changed when I walked into my stepmother's closet and discovered 30 hidden birthday cards with my name on them, wrapped presents gathering dust, and a truth so devastating it shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. Before we dive into this incredible story, I would love to know where you are watching from around the world. Please hit that like button if you can relate to feeling forgotten by family, and do not forget to subscribe because this story will completely change how you think about family dynamics. Trust me, what I discovered next will blow your mind, so let us get started. Growing up, I learned that birthdays were not meant for everyone. My earliest memory of feeling invisible happened when I turned 5 years old. I remember sitting by our living room window in my favorite yellow dress, watching every car that passed, convinced that someone would remember it was my special day. I had spent the morning making construction paper decorations and hanging them around the house, quietly hoping that maybe this year would be different. My father was buried in his newspaper, drinking his morning coffee like it was any ordinary Tuesday. No cake, no presents, no acknowledgement that his daughter had been on this earth for exactly 5 years. The pattern continued through elementary school with devastating consistency. While my classmates shared stories about surprise parties and special family dinners, I learned to dread the annual ritual of sharing birthday experiences during show and tell. I became an expert at creating elaborate lies about imaginary celebrations, describing fictional cakes and made-up presents to avoid the pitying looks from teachers and classmates. Mrs. Henderson, my second-grade teacher, once pulled me aside after I stumbled through another invented birthday story. She asked gentle questions about my family celebrations, and I could see the concern in her eyes, but I was too young and too ashamed to tell her the truth about my invisible existence at home. Everything changed dramatically when my father remarried Linda Thompson when I turned 7 years old. Linda arrived with her 2 children, Jennifer, who was my age, and Michael, who was 2 years older. Suddenly, our quiet house transformed into a celebration headquarters, but only for specific family members. Jennifer's birthday parties became legendary neighborhood events with professional decorations, hired entertainers, and guest lists that included every child within a 5-mile radius. Michael received elaborate themed celebrations that matched his current obsessions, whether it was dinosaurs, superheroes, or later, expensive gaming equipment and concert tickets. I watched these spectacular celebrations from the sidelines, helping to set up decorations and clean up afterward, but never being celebrated myself. Linda would spend weeks planning Jennifer's parties, consulting with party planners and bakeries, creating custom invitations and coordinating gift lists among relatives. The house would fill with extended family members, neighbors, and friends, all gathered to celebrate Jennifer or Michael while I served as an unpaid assistant, invisible among the festivities. When my birthday arrived just 6 weeks after Jennifer's elaborate princess party, the house returned to its usual quiet state, as if celebrations had never existed at all. My father's transformation during this period was perhaps the most painful part of the entire experience. Before Linda, he had been emotionally distant, but occasionally affectionate. After their marriage, he seemed to forget I existed entirely, pouring all his parental energy into being the perfect stepfather to Jennifer and Michael. He learned their favorite foods, attended their school events, and spent Saturday mornings teaching Michael to play baseball in our backyard while I watched from my bedroom window. When I tried to join these father-son bonding sessions, Linda would suddenly appear with household chores that needed my immediate attention, and my father never questioned why I was always conveniently busy. The contrast became more stark as we entered middle school and high school. Jennifer's Sweet 16 party was a catered affair with a live band, professional photographer, and a surprise car presentation that made the local newspaper's social section. Michael's graduation celebration included a weekend trip to New York City and tickets to a Broadway show. Meanwhile, my 16th birthday passed without acknowledgement, and I spent the evening alone in my room, wondering what fundamental flaw in my character made me so unworthy of love and celebration. I developed elaborate coping mechanisms to survive the annual emotional assault of my forgotten birthday. I began baking my own birthday cakes, small single-serving cupcakes that I would eat alone in my room while pretending to do homework. I saved my babysitting money to buy myself small presents that I would wrap and place on my nightstand, creating the illusion that someone had remembered. I learned to schedule activities on my birthday that would keep me away from home, volunteering at animal shelters or spending the day at the public library, anywhere that would provide distraction from the deafening silence of my family's indifference. College provided temporary relief from the annual birthday disappointment, but it also introduced new layers of pain. My roommate Sarah came from a large, loving family that celebrated everything with enthusiasm and joy. She invited me to join her family celebrations, and I experienced firsthand what healthy family dynamics looked like. Her parents remembered my birthday after meeting me just once, sending care packages and handwritten cards that made me cry in the dormitory bathroom. I began to understand that my family's treatment was not normal, that other families did not systematically exclude one child from love and celebration. The pattern continued throughout my adult years, even as I built a successful career in marketing and attempted to create meaningful relationships. Every March 15th, I would wake up with hope that maybe this year someone would remember, maybe someone would call or text or acknowledge my existence. I developed anxiety around my birthday that affected my work performance and personal relationships. Boyfriends who tried to plan birthday celebrations for me found themselves dealing with my emotional breakdowns and inexplicable resistance to being celebrated. I had internalized 30 years of neglect so completely that I believed I was fundamentally undeserving of joy and recognition. My most recent relationship ended just 2 months before this particular birthday, partly because I could not accept his attempts to make me feel special and valued. David had planned a surprise birthday party with my coworkers and friends, but I panicked when I discovered his plans and accused him of trying to humiliate me. He spent hours trying to understand why someone who appeared confident and successful in every other area of life became completely unraveled at the thought of being celebrated. I could not explain to him that 30 years of family rejection had convinced me that any attention or celebration directed toward me was either a mistake or a cruel joke waiting to be revealed. 3 months after my grandmother's funeral, I received a call from my father asking me to help clear out some of her belongings that had been stored at the family house. Grandmother Martinez had been the one family member who occasionally acknowledged my birthday with a card and small gift, though even her gestures felt obligatory rather than genuinely affectionate. Her death had hit me harder than I expected, not because we were particularly close, but because she represented my last connection to feeling like I belonged somewhere in the family structure. My father and Linda had conveniently scheduled their annual spring vacation to coincide with this cleaning project, leaving me with keys to the house and instructions to sort through boxes of grandmother's belongings stored in Linda's walk-in closet. They planned to be gone for 10 days, and I was grateful for the opportunity to complete this emotional task without Linda's hovering presence or my father's uncomfortable attempts at small talk. I had not spent significant time alone in that house since moving out for college, and walking through rooms filled with memories felt like visiting a museum of my own neglected childhood. The master bedroom closet was a monument to Linda's obsessive organization, with custom shelving systems, labeled storage bins, and clothes arranged by color and season. I found grandmother's boxes stacked neatly in the back corner, behind Linda's extensive collection of evening gowns and designer handbags. As I carefully moved the storage boxes to the center of the room, I marveled at Linda's meticulous labeling system and wondered if she approached every aspect of her life with such controlling precision. Working through grandmother's belongings proved more emotional than anticipated. I found photographs of family gatherings that I had attended but barely remembered, Christmas mornings where I appeared in the background while Jennifer and Michael opened piles of presents, vacation photos from trips where I felt like an unwelcome tag-along rather than a family member. There were report cards and school awards that grandmother had apparently saved, though I had no memory of her ever expressing pride in my accomplishments during her lifetime. While reaching for a box of grandmother's jewelry on a high shelf, I accidentally knocked over several storage containers that were precariously balanced behind Linda's winter coats. The containers crashed to the floor, spilling their contents across the plush carpet and revealing items that made absolutely no sense in the context of Linda's perfectly organized space. Among the scattered contents, I saw colorful wrapping paper, ribbons, and what appeared to be greeting cards scattered like confetti across the floor. My hands were shaking as I picked up the first birthday card, a cheerful design featuring cartoon balloons and the words, "Happy Birthday," in bright, festive lettering. The card was addressed to Rebecca Martinez in Linda's distinctive handwriting, dated March 15th from 3 years ago. Inside, the card contained a message written in multiple handwritings, signatures from my father, Linda, Jennifer, Michael, and several relatives whose names I recognized but rarely saw. The message read, "Wishing our wonderful Rebecca the happiest of birthdays. You bring so much joy to our family, and we are grateful for another year of your amazing presence in our lives." I sat on the closet floor, staring at this impossible artifact, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This card should not exist. 3 years ago, my birthday had passed in complete silence, just like every year before and after. I remembered that particular birthday with painful clarity because I had been recovering from wisdom tooth surgery and had hoped that maybe my physical discomfort would inspire some sympathy or acknowledgement from my family. Instead, I spent the day alone in my apartment, eating soft foods and wondering why I continued to hope for something that never came. With growing desperation, I began searching through the scattered contents more systematically. I found card after card, 30 years worth of birthday greetings, each one addressed to me in Linda's handwriting, each one containing elaborate family messages that I had never received. The dates covered my entire life from childhood through the present, a complete collection of birthday acknowledgments that had been created but never delivered. Some cards contained photographs of family celebrations, images of birthday cakes decorated with my name, pictures of wrapped presents arranged on the dining room table with "For Rebecca" tags clearly visible. The discovery became more surreal as I found wrapped presents, dozens of them, with gift tags bearing my name and dates spanning multiple years. A jewelry box for my sweet 16th birthday, a laptop computer for my college graduation year, a professional camera that I had mentioned wanting during a rare family dinner conversation 2 years ago. Each present was carefully wrapped and labeled, as if prepared for giving but never actually presented. I unwrapped a few items and found gifts that demonstrated intimate knowledge of my preferences and interests, things I had mentioned in passing during brief family interactions, but never believed anyone was actually listening to or caring about. Hidden beneath layers of birthday cards and wrapped presents, I discovered a thick notebook with my name written on the cover in Linda's meticulous handwriting. The notebook contained detailed information about my life, organized by year and updated regularly. Pages and pages of observations about my favorite colors, preferred foods, clothing sizes, hobbies, career aspirations, and relationship developments. Linda had been documenting my life with the thoroughness of a research scientist, noting everything from my preference for chocolate cake over vanilla to my tendency to wear silver jewelry instead of gold. The notebook included printed emails and text messages that I had never received, communications from extended family members sending birthday wishes and asking about my well-being. Aunt Margaret had apparently sent birthday messages every year, along with Uncle Frank, several cousins, and even some family friends who remember me from childhood. All of these messages had been intercepted and collected in Linda's secret documentation, creating an elaborate record of love and attention that had been systematically withheld from me for 3 decades. I found photographs that defied everything I thought I knew about my family's feelings toward me. Images of birthday celebrations that had taken place in our house, complete with decorations in my favorite purple color scheme, professional sheet cakes decorated with my name and age, and family members gathered around the dining room table raising glasses in birthday toasts. These celebrations had happened on my birthday, in my family home, but without my presence or knowledge. Looking at these photographs felt like discovering evidence of parallel universe, where my family actually cared about me, but had chosen to celebrate that caring in my absence. The most disturbing discovery was a collection of video recordings on Linda's phone, short clips of family members discussing my birthday plans and expressing excitement about celebrating me. I watched my father talking enthusiastically about purchasing a car for my 25th birthday, Jennifer discussing plans to surprise me with a weekend trip to my favorite city, and Michael suggesting restaurants where the family could take me for birthday dinners. These recordings captured genuine affection and thoughtful planning, making their deception even more cruel and inexplicable. Bank statements and receipts provided concrete evidence of the financial investment in these secret celebrations. Thousands of dollars spent annually on birthday cakes, decorations, professional party planners, catered meals, and expensive gifts that I never received. Linda had maintained detailed spreadsheets tracking expenses for my birthday celebrations, approaching the deception with the same organizational precision that she applied to her closet arrangement. The level of time, money, and emotional energy invested in celebrating my birthday while ensuring I never experienced that celebration revealed a level of psychological manipulation that seemed almost unbelievable in its cruelty and complexity. The discovery of 30 years' worth of hidden birthday celebrations left me feeling like I was losing my grip on reality. Everything I had believed about my family, about myself, about my place in the world, had been built on a foundation of carefully constructed lies. I needed to understand how this massive deception had been maintained for so long, and I started by questioning the one person who might have witnessed something unusual over the years: our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Patterson. Mrs. Patterson had lived next door to my family since before my birth, and she had always been kind to me in ways that felt genuine rather than obligatory. She was the neighbor who brought cookies when I was sick, who asked about my school projects with real interest, and who always seemed happy to see me when I visited my father's house. I walked across the driveway to her front door, still carrying some of the birthday cards I had discovered, hoping she might help me make sense of what I had found. When Mrs. Patterson opened her door and saw the cards in my hands, her expression immediately shifted from pleasant surprise to something that looked like guilt and resignation. Before I could even explain why I was there, she invited me inside and began apologizing profusely for her role in what she called the most heartbreaking situation she had ever witnessed. Her confession revealed that she had been unknowingly participating in the conspiracy for years by accepting package deliveries addressed to me that Linda claimed were surprise gifts to be given at special family gatherings that never actually included me. Mrs. Patterson explained that Linda had approached her years ago with a story about planning elaborate surprise celebrations for me that required careful coordination and secrecy. Linda convinced her that I was particularly difficult to surprise and that the family needed to take extreme measures to ensure their plans remained hidden until the perfect moment. Mrs. Patterson had been storing birthday cakes from local bakeries, accepting deliveries of flowers and decorations, and even providing storage space for larger gifts like furniture and electronics that were supposedly being saved for my surprise celebrations. The neighbor's revelations became more disturbing as she described annual Rebecca's Birthday Committee meetings that Linda hosted in our backyard while I was at work or school. These meetings included my father, Jennifer, Michael, and various extended family members who gathered to plan my birthday celebrations with the same enthusiasm and attention to detail that other families might devote to wedding planning. Mrs. Patterson had observed these meetings from her kitchen window, noting how animated and excited everyone appeared while discussing their plans for celebrating me. According to Mrs. Patterson, Linda had convinced the entire family that I suffered from severe social anxiety around celebrations and that surprising me with traditional parties would cause psychological trauma. Linda claimed that I had specifically requested that birthday celebrations be planned without my knowledge and presented to me only after they were completely organized, as a way of managing my alleged anxiety about being the center of attention. This explanation satisfied family members who wanted to celebrate me, but respected what they believed were my emotional needs and personal preferences. Mrs. Patterson showed me her garage, where she had been storing items for my upcoming surprise celebration for the past several months. Professional party decorations in purple and silver, my favorite color combination that Linda had apparently noted and shared with family members. Catered food containers labeled for a party of 25 people, custom linens embroidered with my name and birth date, and a 3-tier birthday cake decorated with edible flowers and "Happy 28th Birthday Rebecca" written in elegant script frosting. The neighbor also revealed that she had been asked to document these celebrations with photographs and videos that would supposedly be presented to me as part of the surprise. She showed me hours of footage from birthday celebrations that had taken place in my family's backyard, complete with tables full of food, family members giving speeches about their love and appreciation for me, and elaborate toasts celebrating my accomplishments and character. Watching these videos felt like observing some alternate reality where I was beloved and cherished, but somehow absent from my own life. Mrs. Patterson's confession included details about the extended family's involvement in planning my celebrations. She described cousins driving in from other states specifically for my birthday gatherings, aunts and uncles contributing homemade dishes and handcrafted gifts, and even family friends who sent congratulatory messages to be shared during the celebration dinner. The scope of the conspiracy included virtually everyone in my extended family network, all of whom believed they were participating in elaborate surprise planning rather than systematic emotional abuse. I learned that Linda had created detailed backstories to explain my absence from these celebrations to family members who might question why the guest of honor was never present. Linda told different family members different explanations. Some were told I was working late at important client meetings, others heard that I was traveling for business, and some believed I was dealing with health issues that prevented me from attending large gatherings. Linda's explanations were tailored to each person's relationship with me and their level of concern about my well-being. The neighbor described receiving phone calls from worried relatives who wanted to check on my well-being when they had not seen me at recent family gatherings. Linda handled these calls by explaining that I was going through a difficult period and preferred minimal contact with extended family until I felt more emotionally stable. This explanation satisfied most relatives while simultaneously isolating me from potential support systems that might have revealed Linda's deception or provided alternative perspectives on family dynamics. Mrs. Patterson also revealed that she had been asked to participate in creating a photo album documenting my birthday celebrations over the years. Linda claimed this album would be presented to me as a surprise gift showing how much the family had celebrated me throughout my life, even during years when I felt forgotten or overlooked. The album contained professional quality photographs of elaborate table settings, family members holding gifts intended for me, and group photos of relatives gathered specifically to honor my birthday while I remained completely unaware of their efforts. The most shocking revelation came when Mrs. Patterson showed me text message exchanges with Linda discussing my emotional state and reactions to feeling forgotten on my birthdays. Linda had been documenting my visible sadness and disappointment as confirmation that her surprise strategy was working perfectly. She shared details about my birthday behavior with Mrs. Patterson, describing how I would become quiet and withdrawn each March as evidence that the eventual surprise would be even more meaningful and impactful when finally revealed. As our conversation continued, Mrs. Patterson expressed increasing distress about her unwitting participation in causing me pain. She had genuinely believed she was helping to create wonderful surprises that would eventually bring me joy, and learning about my decades of suffering on my birthday filled her with guilt and horror. She begged for my forgiveness, while simultaneously expressing outrage at Linda's manipulation of her good intentions and community spirit. The neighbor's final revelation was perhaps the most painful. Linda had scheduled my 29th birthday celebration for the following weekend, planning to finally reveal all 30 years of hidden celebrations as the ultimate surprise gift. Mrs. Patterson had been preparing for what Linda described as the most amazing birthday surprise in family history, where I would finally learn about decades of love and planning that had been withheld from me. Linda's plan was to present this revelation as an act of love rather than the psychological torture it actually represented. Armed with overwhelming evidence of the 30-year deception, I knew I needed to confront Linda directly. My hands trembled as I dialed her number, sitting surrounded by the birthday cards, wrapped presents, and documented evidence of her elaborate psychological manipulation. When Linda answered the phone, her voice carried its usual controlled pleasantness, the same tone she had used throughout my childhood when explaining why I could not participate in family activities or celebrations. My voice shook as I described what I had discovered in her closet, listing the birthday cards, presents, planning documents, and photographic evidence of celebrations held in my absence. Linda's initial response was immediate denial, claiming that I must be confused or misinterpreting innocent items that had reasonable explanations. She suggested that stress from my recent breakup and grandmother's death was causing me to see patterns and conspiracies where none existed, employing the same gaslighting techniques she had perfected over 3 decades of manipulation. As I continued reading specific details from her meticulously kept notebook about my life, Linda's denials became weaker and more desperate. When I began reciting exact text messages she had sent to extended family members explaining my supposed social anxiety around celebrations, her resistance finally crumbled. The silence stretched for nearly a full minute before Linda released a sound that was part sob and part laugh, a disturbing combination that revealed the depth of her psychological instability. Linda's confession began with what she claimed was an explanation but quickly revealed itself as a justification for deliberate cruelty. She explained that she had developed this system of hidden celebrations because she wanted to toughen me up for the real world, where disappointment and rejection were inevitable. According to Linda's twisted logic, allowing me to experience birthday celebrations would make me soft and unprepared for life's hardships, while systematic disappointment would build character and resilience that would serve me well in adulthood. The conversation revealed that Linda's motivations were rooted in deep-seated jealousy and insecurity about my relationship with my father. She admitted that from the moment she married my father, she viewed me as competition for his affection and attention. Linda's solution was not to build a loving relationship with me as her stepdaughter, but to systematically undermine my sense of belonging in the family while ensuring that any love or attention directed toward me was filtered through her control and manipulation. Linda described feeling threatened by my academic achievements and natural talents, particularly my ability to form friendships easily and my success in school despite receiving no support or encouragement at home. She explained that my independence and resilience, qualities that she had supposedly been trying to build through neglect, actually made her feel inadequate as a stepmother and fearful that I would expose her treatment to others who might intervene on my behalf. As the conversation continued, Linda revealed details about her own troubled childhood that provided context for her behavior, but in no way excused it. She described growing up with a mother who used emotional manipulation as a primary parenting tool, creating elaborate scenarios designed to test Linda's loyalty and emotional reactions. Linda's mother had convinced her that love must be earned through suffering and that children who received unconditional affection became spoiled and entitled adults. Linda explained that she viewed her treatment of me as a psychological experiment designed to create the perfect daughter through carefully controlled emotional deprivation. She had researched child psychology and developmental theories, cherry-picking information that supported her approach while ignoring overwhelming evidence about the harmful effects of emotional neglect. Linda genuinely believed that she was providing me with valuable life lessons that would make me stronger and more successful than children who grew up with consistent love and support. The most disturbing aspect of Linda's confession was her description of the satisfaction she derived from watching my emotional responses to birthday neglect. She had documented my visible sadness and disappointment with the same clinical detachment that a scientist might use to record experimental results. Linda described feeling validated when I became withdrawn and quiet on my birthday, viewing my pain as confirmation that her psychological intervention was having the intended effect. Linda revealed that she had convinced my father that I actually preferred to be left alone on my birthday, claiming that I had specifically requested minimal attention because celebrations made me uncomfortable. She supported this lie with selective examples of my behavior, pointing to my tendency to spend birthdays alone as evidence of my supposed preference for solitude rather than recognizing it as a trauma response to years of systematic neglect. According to Linda, She had planned to reveal the truth about the hidden celebrations on my 30th birthday as the ultimate gift and proof of her love. In her twisted perception, learning about 30 years of secret celebrations would demonstrate how much the family had always cared about me and would make me grateful for the character-building experiences she had provided. Linda expected this revelation to result in gratitude and appreciation rather than the horror and betrayal that any rational person would experience. Linda's confession also revealed the extent to which she had manipulated extended family members to maintain the deception. She had created elaborate stories about my social anxiety, emotional fragility, and specific requests for surprise celebrations that explain my absence from family gatherings while positioning herself as the caring stepmother who was protecting my psychological well-being. These lies allowed her to maintain family support for her actions while isolating me from potential allies who might have questioned her treatment. The conversation took an even darker turn when Linda described her therapy sessions where she had discussed her project with me as if I were a case study rather than her stepdaughter. She had found a therapist who specialized in behavioral modification and had presented my situation as a challenging but rewarding opportunity to help a difficult child develop better coping strategies. Linda's ability to manipulate even mental health professionals demonstrated the sophisticated nature of her psychological warfare. As Linda's confession continued, she expressed no genuine remorse for the pain she had caused, instead focusing on her disappointment that I had discovered her plans before she could reveal them on her preferred timeline. She seemed genuinely confused by my anger and betrayal, expecting me to appreciate the elaborate effort she had invested in creating secret celebrations, even though I had never been allowed to experience them. Linda's complete inability to understand the cruelty of her actions revealed a level of psychological damage that made meaningful reconciliation impossible. The phone call ended with Linda's final manipulation attempt, where she claimed that exposing her actions would destroy the family and hurt innocent people who had participated in the celebrations, believing they were creating wonderful surprises for me. She positioned herself as the protective family member trying to spare everyone from unnecessary pain, maintaining her victim narrative even while confessing to decades of deliberate emotional abuse. My father returned from vacation 2 days earlier than planned after Linda called him in hysterics following our phone conversation. I was still sitting in Linda's closet, surrounded by evidence of the 30-year conspiracy, when I heard his car pull into the driveway. Through the bedroom window, I watched him enter the house with the hesitant movements of someone who knew they were walking into a confrontation that would fundamentally change everything. When my father appeared in the closet doorway and saw me sitting among the scattered birthday cards and wrapped presents, his face went through a series of expressions that revealed his complete awareness of what I had discovered. There was no surprise, no confusion, no questions about why I was surrounded by evidence of hidden celebrations. Instead, his shoulders sagged with what looked like relief, as if he had been carrying the weight of the secret for so long that its exposure felt more like liberation than catastrophe. My father's initial response was to minimize Linda's actions and suggest that the situation was more complicated than it appeared. He sat down on the closet floor across from me and began explaining that Linda's intentions had been good, that she genuinely believed she was helping me develop independence and resilience. His words felt like additional betrayal as I realized that he was still protecting Linda and her narrative rather than acknowledging the systematic abuse I had endured under his roof and with his knowledge. As I confronted my father with specific evidence of his participation in the deception, his defensive explanations crumbled just as Linda's had. I showed him photographs of himself participating in my birthday celebrations, raising toasts in my honor, and selecting gifts that demonstrated intimate knowledge of my preferences and interests. When faced with undeniable proof of his active involvement, my father finally abandoned his attempts to minimize the situation and began what felt like the first honest conversation we had ever had. My father's confession revealed that he had known about Linda's plan from the beginning and had made the conscious decision to support her deception rather than protect his daughter from psychological manipulation. He described feeling trapped between his new wife's demands and his paternal instincts, ultimately choosing what he perceived as the path of least resistance rather than confronting Linda's increasingly controlling behavior. According to my father, Linda had initially presented the hidden celebration idea as a temporary strategy to help me adjust to our new family dynamic after her marriage. She convinced him that I was struggling with jealousy toward Jennifer and Michael and that secret celebrations would allow the family to honor me without creating additional tension or comparison. Linda promised that the deception would last only a few years until I matured enough to handle traditional celebrations without feeling competitive or inadequate. My father admitted that he had participated in elaborate birthday celebrations for me while knowing that I was spending those same days alone and feeling forgotten. He described the cognitive dissonance of giving heartfelt speeches about his love and pride for me while making no effort to include me in those expressions of affection. During family birthday toasts, he would talk about my accomplishments and character while simultaneously allowing me to believe that my achievements went unnoticed and unappreciated. The most devastating part of my father's confession was learning about the specific moments when he had chosen Linda's comfort over my emotional well-being. He described multiple occasions when he had considered revealing the truth or ending the deception, particularly during my teenage years when my birthday sadness became more pronounced and concerning. However, each time he approached Linda about including me in the celebrations, she threatened divorce and separation from Jennifer and Michael, effectively holding his new family hostage to ensure his continued compliance. My father revealed that Linda had documented his moments of doubt and used them as evidence of his disloyalty to their marriage. She convinced him that questioning her methods meant he did not trust her judgment and did not value their relationship. Over time, Linda's emotional manipulation transformed my father from someone who occasionally questioned her treatment of me into an active participant who helped create explanations for my absence from family celebrations. I learned that my father had been secretly documenting my life in much the same way that Linda had, but for different reasons. While Linda's documentation served to support her psychological experiment, my father kept detailed records out of guilt and a desire to someday make amends for his failures as a parent. He showed me boxes of photographs he had taken secretly at my school events, copies of report cards and awards that he had requested from my teachers, and detailed journals documenting my development and achievements throughout my childhood and adolescence. My father's secret documentation included evidence of his internal struggle with Linda's treatment of me. His journals contained pages of self-doubt and consideration of alternative approaches, but also rationalizations for why maintaining family stability was more important than protecting me from emotional neglect. Reading his private thoughts revealed that he understood the harm being done to me but felt powerless to stop it without destroying what he perceived as his only chance at having a complete family. The conversation revealed that my father had attended my college graduation ceremony without my knowledge, sitting in the back row and leaving before the reception to avoid being seen. He had wanted to witness my achievement and feel proud of my accomplishments, but Linda had forbidden him from attending openly, claiming that my graduation was not a family event since I had not specifically invited them. My father's decision to attend secretly while maintaining the public pretense of disinterest represented the cowardice that had defined his parenting throughout my childhood. My father also confessed to maintaining a secret savings account intended for my wedding, accumulated over years of birthday and Christmas money that was never given to me directly. This account contained thousands of dollars earmarked for celebrating my future milestones, representing his intention to someday compensate for decades of missed celebrations. However, his plan to surprise me with this accumulated love and support revealed the same flawed thinking that had enabled Linda's abuse, the belief that future gestures could somehow erase years of present neglect. As our conversation continued, my father described the psychological toll of participating in Linda's deception while watching me struggle with feelings of unworthiness and family rejection. He admitted to seeking therapy individually to cope with his guilt and shame, but had never been honest with his therapist about the specific nature of his family dynamics. His therapy sessions focused on general parenting challenges rather than the active emotional abuse he was enabling in his own home. My father's final confession was perhaps the most heartbreaking. He revealed that he had written letters to me every year on my birthday, expressing his love, pride, and regret for his failures as a parent. These letters, hundreds of them spanning from my childhood through the present, contained all the acknowledgement and affection that I had craved throughout my life. However, he had never sent a single letter, instead storing them in a safety deposit box as evidence of emotions he was too cowardly to express directly. The conversation ended with my father's breakdown and admission that he had planned to confess everything before his death, leaving me the letters and savings account as final gestures of love and apology. His plan to wait until he was dying to reveal the truth epitomized the selfishness that had characterized his parenting. Even his eventual honesty was designed to ease his own guilt rather than provide me with the love and support I needed while I was still young enough to benefit from his attention and affection. Reeling from my father's confession, I needed to understand how the conspiracy had extended beyond our immediate household to include the broader network of relatives and family friends. My first call was to my grandmother's sister, Aunt Margaret, who had always seemed genuinely fond of me during rare family gatherings, but whose birthday cards I now knew had been intercepted for decades. When I reached Aunt Margaret and explained what I had discovered, her reaction confirmed that the deception had been far more extensive than even I had imagined. She immediately began crying and apologizing, revealing that she had been sending birthday cards, gifts, and money to me every year through Linda, who claimed to be coordinating family efforts to make my celebrations extra special. Aunt Margaret had contributed hundreds of dollars over the years to what she believed were group gifts being purchased on behalf of the entire family. Aunt Margaret's revelations painted a picture of extended family members who had been systematically manipulated into supporting Linda's deception while believing they were participating in loving gestures toward me. She described annual phone calls from Linda requesting contributions for my birthday celebrations, Christmas gifts, graduation presents, and other milestone acknowledgments. Extended family members had been sending money and gifts that they believed were being combined with other family contributions to create elaborate surprises that would be presented to me at special family gatherings. According to Aunt Margaret, Linda had created a family communication network that positioned her as the central coordinator for all celebrations and gift-giving related to me. She convinced relatives that I had specifically requested that birthday acknowledgments be handled through her to ensure proper coordination and avoid overwhelming me with too many individual contacts. This explanation satisfied family members who wanted to maintain relationships with me while respecting what they believed were my personal preferences for minimal direct communication. I learned that some relatives had tried to contact me directly over the years, but had been told by Linda that I was going through difficult periods and preferred limited communication until I felt more emotionally stable. Linda's explanations varied depending on the timing and the specific relative, but generally centered around claims about my social anxiety, work stress, or relationship problems that made direct contact inadvisable for my psychological well-being. Aunt Margaret revealed that the extended family had been divided into what she called Team Linda and Secret Team Rebecca, though even those who questioned Linda's approach had been convinced that open rebellion would harm me more than help. Some relatives had expressed concerns about my absence from family gatherings and my apparent social isolation, but Linda had explanations for every question and seemed to have access to detailed information about my life that supported her claims about my emotional state and personal preferences. My conversation with Aunt Margaret also revealed that several relatives had attempted to break away from Linda's coordination system and contact me directly, but their efforts had been intercepted through methods I had not yet discovered. Uncle Frank had apparently attempted an intervention after becoming suspicious about my consistent absence from family celebrations, but had been ostracized by other family members who viewed his questions as disruptive to family harmony and potentially harmful to my alleged emotional fragility. I called Uncle Frank next and learned about his attempts to expose Linda's manipulation, efforts that had cost him relationships with other family members who believed Linda's explanations about protecting my well-being. Uncle Frank described feeling like he was going crazy when other relatives insisted that I had specifically requested the celebration arrangement that Linda had implemented. His attempts to point out the obvious problems with excluding the guest of honor from birthday celebrations were dismissed as misunderstanding my unique emotional needs. Uncle Frank revealed that he had been secretly documenting Linda's contradictory explanations and suspicious behavior for several years, maintaining a file of evidence that he planned to present to the family when he had enough proof to overcome Linda's manipulation. His documentation included recorded phone conversations where Linda provided different explanations for my absence to different relatives, creating a pattern of deception that revealed her systematic manipulation of family communications. Through Uncle Frank, I learned about my grandmother's deathbed request to reveal the truth about Linda's treatment of me. Grandmother Martinez had apparently become suspicious about the birthday arrangement in her final years and had asked several family members to investigate my actual feelings about family celebrations. Her death had prevented her from pursuing this investigation further, but she had left specific instructions with Uncle Frank to ensure that I learned the truth about my family's hidden expressions of love. Uncle Frank also provided information about other relatives who had been uncomfortable with Linda's coordination system but felt powerless to challenge it without more concrete evidence of wrongdoing. Cousin Sarah had apparently left early from several family gatherings after becoming upset about my absence, and Cousin David had been secretly preserving artwork and photographs that Linda had attempted to remove from family collections that included me. My conversation with Cousin David revealed another layer of Linda's control over family narratives about my place in the family structure. Linda had systematically removed or relocated photographs, artwork, and mementos that prominently featured me, gradually erasing evidence of my childhood presence in family spaces. David had noticed this pattern and had been secretly copying and preserving items that Linda had thrown away or hidden, creating an archive of my family presence that contradicted Linda's narrative about my desire for minimal involvement in family life. David showed me photographs of family gatherings where Linda had carefully arranged seating and activities to minimize my inclusion in group photos and family activities. Even when I was physically present at family events, Linda had orchestrated situations that made me appear peripheral or unimportant in family documentation. This systematic erasure of my visual presence in family history supported Linda's claims to newer family members and friends that I had always been somewhat separate from family celebrations and traditions. The extended family investigation also revealed a secret communication network that had formed among relatives who were uncomfortable with Linda's explanations, but unsure how to address their concerns without causing family disruption. Several aunts, uncles, and cousins had been privately sharing their doubts about the birthday arrangement and comparing notes about Linda's contradictory explanations for my behavior and preferences. Cousin Jennifer, Linda's own daughter, eventually contacted me after learning about the discovery through family communications. Her call revealed that even Linda's children had been manipulated and threatened to ensure their participation in the deception. Jennifer described years of being forbidden from including me in activities or celebrations, with threats of punishment if she attempted to build a closer relationship with me or question Linda's explanations for keeping me separate from family festivities. The family investigation concluded with the discovery that Linda had been monitoring and intercepting family communications through access to social media accounts, email passwords, and phone records that she had obtained through various manipulative means. Her ability to control information flow between me and extended family members had been supported by technological surveillance that allowed her to identify and prevent attempts at direct communication that might have exposed her deception years earlier. Through these conversations with extended family members, I learned that many relatives had maintained genuine affection for me throughout the years, but had been systematically prevented from expressing that affection directly. Their love and concern had been real, but Linda's manipulation had redirected those positive feelings into support for a deception that caused me decades of emotional suffering while convincing the family that they were participating in something loving and beneficial. With a clearer understanding of the extended family's unwitting participation in Linda's deception, I knew I needed to confront my step-siblings Jennifer and Michael to understand their roles in the conspiracy and the psychological pressure they had endured to maintain the elaborate lie. Jennifer agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near her apartment, and her demeanor when she arrived revealed someone who had been carrying the weight of terrible secrets for far too long. Jennifer's confession began with tears and apologies as she described the psychological torture that Linda had inflicted on her own children to ensure their compliance with the birthday deception. From the time Jennifer was young, Linda had made it clear that any attempt to include me in family celebrations or develop a closer relationship with me would result in severe consequences that could include removal from the family home or loss of financial support for education and basic needs. According to Jennifer, Linda had convinced her children that I suffered from severe mental health issues that made normal family interactions dangerous for my psychological stability. Linda claimed that my presence at family celebrations could trigger emotional breakdowns or self-destructive behavior that would require professional intervention and potentially hospitalization. This explanation terrified Jennifer and Michael, who genuinely cared about my well-being but were too young to understand that Linda's claims about my mental health were complete fabrications designed to justify emotional abuse. Jennifer revealed that Linda had created elaborate punishment systems to discourage any spontaneous kindness or inclusion toward me. When Jennifer tried to invite me to her 13th birthday party, Linda forced her to write letters of apology to every guest explaining why the party had to be canceled due to her poor judgment and selfishness. Linda claimed that Jennifer's attempt to include me had created a family crisis that required professional intervention and threatened the stability of our entire household. The psychological manipulation extended to monitoring and controlling any positive interactions between the step-siblings and me. Linda required Jennifer and Michael to report any conversations they had with me, any expressions of friendliness or curiosity about my life, and any questions they might have about why I was excluded from family activities. These reports were used to identify potential threats to Linda's control and to develop strategies for maintaining separation between me and my step-siblings. Jennifer described the development of what she called parallel family systems, where Linda taught her children to interact with me politely but superficially while reserving genuine warmth and intimacy for family activities that excluded me. This system allowed Linda to maintain the appearance of family harmony while ensuring that meaningful relationships could not develop between me and the children who might have been natural allies and sources of emotional support. According to Jennifer, Linda had documented and analyzed my emotional responses to family exclusion with the clinical detachment of a researcher conducting psychological experiments. She maintained detailed records of my facial expressions, body language, and behavioral changes during family gatherings where I was present but not truly included. Linda used this documentation to refine her manipulation strategies and to support her claims to family members about my supposed preference for minimal involvement in family celebrations. Jennifer revealed that Michael had attempted to rebel against Linda's system during his teenage years by secretly including me in some activities and conversations, but Linda had discovered his defiance and implemented increasingly severe consequences to ensure his compliance. Michael's punishment had included isolation from friends, removal of privileges, and threats to sabotage his college applications if he continued to question Linda's authority or show solidarity with me. The conversation with Jennifer also revealed the extent to which Linda had manipulated my relationships with peers and potential romantic partners throughout my adolescence and young adulthood. Linda had contacted parents of my friends, teachers at my school, and even some of my dates to share carefully crafted stories about my family dynamics that portrayed me as emotionally unstable, manipulative, or attention-seeking. These interventions were designed to isolate me from external support systems that might provide alternative perspectives on my family situation. Jennifer described watching Linda systematically destroy my childhood friendships through strategic phone calls and carefully timed interventions. When friends invited me to birthday parties or sleepovers, Linda would contact their parents with concerns about my behavior or family situation that resulted in withdrawn invitations and gradually diminishing social connections. Linda's interference was subtle enough that I never understood why friendships that seemed promising would suddenly cool or disappear entirely. According to Jennifer, Linda had hired private investigators to monitor my adult relationships and career development, using the information gathered to interfere with opportunities that might provide me with independence or emotional support. Linda's surveillance network included social media monitoring, workplace contacts, and even infiltration of my romantic relationships through seemingly coincidental meetings with partners and their families where Linda would share carefully designed stories about my character and family background. Jennifer revealed that Linda's control extended to family pets, who had been trained to avoid me or show minimal affection when I was present at family gatherings. Even the family dog's behavior had been manipulated to support Linda's narrative about my peripheral place in the family structure. This detail, while seemingly minor, illustrated the comprehensiveness of Linda's psychological warfare and her attention to every element that might influence family dynamics or perceptions about my belonging. The conversation also revealed that Linda had maintained detailed files on every family member, documenting their weaknesses, fears, and psychological vulnerabilities that could be used to ensure compliance with her authority. Jennifer and Michael lived under constant surveillance and threat of emotional manipulation, creating a family atmosphere of fear and control that extended far beyond Linda's treatment of me to encompass systematic psychological abuse of her own children. Jennifer's most devastating revelation was that Linda had recorded and preserved audio and video documentation of my emotional distress during family gatherings, creating what she called a research archive of my responses to systematic exclusion and psychological manipulation. Linda had apparently shown selected clips to family members as evidence of my emotional instability, while hiding the context that her own behavior had created the distress she was documenting. The conversation with Jennifer concluded with her description of the eating disorder and anxiety problems she had developed as a result of living under Linda's psychological control. Both Jennifer and Michael had required therapy and medication to cope with the trauma of growing up in a household where love and security were contingent on perfect compliance with Linda's increasingly demanding and contradictory expectations. Their psychological suffering provided additional evidence of Linda's capacity for inflicting systematic emotional damage on anyone under her control. Jennifer's final revelation was that she and Michael had been planning to expose Linda's treatment of me after their own graduation from college, when they would be financially independent enough to withstand her retaliation. They had been secretly documenting Linda's behavior and collecting evidence to present to extended family members, but my discovery of the birthday conspiracy had accelerated their timeline and forced them to confront the situation before they felt fully prepared to handle the consequences. Following my conversation with Jennifer, I reached out to Michael, who had graduated from college the previous year and was working as a software engineer in a city 3 hours away. Michael's distance from the family home had given him perspective on Linda's behavior that he had been unable to achieve while living under her direct control. When I called him and explained what I had discovered, his response was immediate relief, followed by an offer to drive to town with evidence he had been secretly collecting for years. Michael arrived the next day carrying multiple boxes of documentation that revealed the scope of his covert resistance to Linda's psychological manipulation. He had been using his technical skills to secretly record family conversations, document Linda's contradictory explanations for family policies, and create digital archives of evidence that could be used to expose her systematic emotional abuse. His documentation was more comprehensive than anything I had discovered in Linda's closet, representing years of careful observation and evidence collection. Michael's evidence included hidden camera footage he had installed in common areas of the family home during his final years of high school, capturing Linda's behavior when she believed no one was observing. The footage revealed Linda's true personality behind the carefully constructed facade she presented to family members and community members. In these unguarded moments, Linda displayed callous indifference to my emotional well-being and expressed satisfaction with the success of her psychological manipulation. The hidden camera footage also documented Linda's coaching sessions with Jennifer, where she practiced responses to potential questions about my absence from family celebrations and rehearsed explanations for why I preferred the arrangement Linda had implemented. These practice sessions revealed the calculated nature of Linda's deception and her awareness that her behavior required elaborate justification to maintain family support. Michael had also documented Linda's communications with family therapists and psychological professionals, recordings that revealed her ability to manipulate even trained mental health workers through carefully crafted narratives about family dynamics and my alleged emotional needs. Linda's therapy sessions focused on strategies for managing what she described as my difficult personality and resistance to healthy family relationships, presenting herself as a dedicated stepmother struggling to help a challenging child. According to Michael, Several family friends and community members had expressed concern about my apparent isolation from family activities, but Linda had explanations for every question that positioned her as protecting my emotional well-being. Michael had recorded conversations where Linda discussed her expertise in managing my psychological needs with neighbors, teachers, and family friends who might otherwise have intervened on my behalf. Michael's evidence collection had expanded to include documentation of Linda's interference with my external relationships and opportunities. He had discovered Linda's communications with employers, landlords, and even some of my romantic partners where she shared carefully designed information about my family background that subtly undermined my credibility and emotional stability. Linda's interference was sophisticated enough that most recipients probably never realized they were being manipulated to view me negatively. Through Michael, I learned about Dr. Patricia Williams, the family therapist who had treated Jennifer and Michael during their teenage years when their psychological symptoms became too pronounced to ignore. Dr. Williams had apparently expressed concerns about family dynamics and had recommended family therapy that included me, but Linda had convinced her that my participation would be counterproductive due to my resistance to psychological intervention and my tendency to manipulate therapeutic situations for attention. Michael arranged a meeting with Dr. Williams, who had maintained detailed records of her sessions with Jennifer and Michael that documented their distress about family dynamics involving me. Dr. Williams admitted that she had been manipulated by Linda's presentations and had failed to recognize the systematic emotional abuse occurring in our household. Her professional notes revealed a pattern of symptoms in Jennifer and Michael that should have triggered mandatory reporting requirements, but Linda's explanations had convinced Dr. Williams that the children's distress stemmed from other sources. Dr. Williams provided professional perspective on Linda's psychological manipulation, explaining that Linda demonstrated characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder combined with sophisticated understanding of psychological principles that allowed her to manipulate both family members and professional contacts. Dr. Williams admitted that Linda's case had taught her important lessons about recognizing manipulation in therapy settings and had changed her approach to working with families where one member served as the primary information source. Through Dr. Williams, I was introduced to Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, my former elementary school teacher who had attempted to intervene on my behalf during my childhood but had been prevented from taking action by Linda's manipulation of school administrators. Mrs. Rodriguez had maintained records of her concerns about my family situation and had attempted to contact Child Protective Services, but Linda's explanations about my emotional needs and family therapy had satisfied social workers who investigated the reports. Mrs. Rodriguez revealed that she had secretly maintained contact with some of my childhood friends' families, hoping to provide me with alternative support systems that might compensate for the emotional neglect I was experiencing at home. However, Linda's interference with these relationships had been systematic and effective, gradually isolating me from potential sources of support and alternative perspectives on family dynamics. I also learned about Cousin David's efforts to preserve family history that included me, despite Linda's systematic removal of photographs and mementos that documented my presence in family celebrations and traditions. David had been secretly copying and storing items that Linda had thrown away or hidden, creating an alternative archive of family history that contradicted Linda's narrative about my peripheral role in family life. David's preservation efforts extended to maintaining relationships with extended family members who had been discouraged from direct contact with me, creating an underground network of relatives who maintained affection and concern for my well-being despite Linda's coordination of official family communications. This network had been planning intervention strategies that would have eventually exposed Linda's deception, even if I had not discovered the birthday conspiracy independently. Michael's documentation also revealed that several family members had pursued legal consultation about my rights to family inheritance and property, suspecting that Linda had manipulated financial arrangements to exclude me from legitimate claims. These legal investigations had been complicated by Linda's sophisticated understanding of inheritance law and her careful documentation of my supposed agreement with arrangements that excluded me from various family benefits and opportunities. The resistance network that Michael revealed included surprising allies such as Linda's own sister, Margaret Thompson, who had expressed horror at Linda's treatment of me during family conversations that Linda believed were private and supportive. Margaret Thompson had been secretly documenting Linda's admissions about her psychological manipulation, hoping to eventually present evidence that would force family intervention on my behalf. Through these conversations with allies and resistance members, I learned that many people had recognized the psychological abuse occurring in our family, but had been prevented from effective intervention by Linda's sophisticated manipulation of institutional systems and professional relationships. Their documented evidence provided additional confirmation of the systematic nature of Linda's emotional abuse and the elaborate effort required to maintain such comprehensive deception over 3 decades. The network of allies also revealed that Linda's behavior toward me was part of a broader pattern of psychological manipulation that affected everyone within her sphere of influence, though I had been her primary target due to my position as competition for my father's attention and my lack of legal protection as a stepdaughter. Understanding this broader context helped explain how Linda had maintained support for her actions while simultaneously inflicting systematic emotional damage on anyone who challenged her authority or threatened her control. Armed with overwhelming evidence from multiple sources and supported by a network of family members who had been working secretly to expose Linda's psychological manipulation, I made the decision to confront the entire extended family with the truth about 3 decades of systematic emotional abuse disguised as loving celebration planning. The confrontation would take place at what Linda had planned as my surprise 29th birthday celebration, but instead of revealing her supposed gift of hidden love, I would expose her calculated cruelty to everyone who had unknowingly participated in her deception. The family gathering took place in our childhood home, with relatives arriving from multiple states believing they were finally going to witness the ultimate surprise birthday celebration that Linda had been promising for years. Aunt Margaret, Uncle Frank, cousins David and Sarah, Jennifer, Michael, my father, and even some family friends filled the living room where Linda had prepared what she intended to be her masterpiece revelation of 30 years of secret family love and dedication. When I stood before the assembled family with boxes of evidence, Linda's confident smile began to fade as she realized that her carefully planned surprise was about to become her public exposure. I began by thanking everyone for their genuine love and efforts to celebrate me over the years, acknowledging that their intentions had been pure even while their actions had been manipulated to cause me decades of emotional suffering. Reading excerpts from Linda's detailed notebook about my life, displaying photographs of birthday celebrations held in my absence, and sharing recordings of family members expressing affection for me while I remained isolated and feeling unloved, I watched the assembled relatives struggle to understand how their loving intentions had been transformed into instruments of psychological torture. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, creating a cascade of horrified realizations as family members began connecting their own experiences with Linda's manipulation. Linda's initial attempts to maintain her narrative crumbled quickly as family members began asking pointed questions about specific instances of deception they could now recognize. Uncle Frank's documentation of contradictory explanations, Michael's hidden camera footage, and Jennifer's testimony about psychological threats created a comprehensive picture of systematic manipulation that no one could rationalize or excuse. Linda's public breakdown was complete and devastating as she cycled through denial, justification, blame shifting, and finally desperate admissions of guilt while begging for understanding and forgiveness from family members who were horrified by the scope of her psychological cruelty. Her attempts to position herself as the misunderstood protector of my emotional well-being were met with stunned silence from relatives who could no longer ignore the evidence of her calculated abuse. My father's public apology was equally emotional and comprehensive, as he admitted his cowardice and complicity in allowing Linda's abuse to continue for 3 decades while prioritizing his own comfort over his daughter's emotional well-being. His breakdown included reading excerpts from letters he had written but never sent, expressing the love and pride he had withheld while participating in elaborate celebrations of my achievements that I was never allowed to experience. Jennifer and Michael's testimonies provided additional confirmation of Linda's psychological manipulation and documented the trauma they had experienced growing up under her controlling influence. Their support was crucial in helping extended family members understand that Linda's abuse extended beyond her treatment of me to encompass systematic emotional manipulation of anyone under her authority. The family's unanimous decision to cut contact with Linda was immediate and decisive, with relatives expressing outrage at how their love and good intentions had been manipulated to cause me harm. Extended family members began sharing their own experiences of confusion and discomfort with Linda's explanations over the years, creating a complete picture of her sophisticated deception and psychological manipulation. My father's commitment to divorce proceedings and intensive family therapy represented his first decisive action to prioritize my well-being over his own comfort and convenience. His willingness to face the financial and emotional consequences of ending his marriage demonstrated a level of accountability that was decades overdue, but still meaningful in its eventual arrival. The establishment of new family traditions centered around healing, honesty, and authentic relationship building marked the beginning of my journey toward accepting love and celebration after 30 years of emotional deprivation. My first genuine birthday celebration, surrounded by family members who could finally express their affection directly, was overwhelming and beautiful in ways that I struggled to process after so many years of systematic neglect. Learning to accept genuine love and attention required intensive therapy and patient support from family members who understood that decades of psychological abuse could not be healed instantly through good intentions and belated celebrations. My therapeutic journey included processing complex trauma, developing healthy relationship skills, and learning to recognize and resist manipulation tactics that Linda had used so effectively for so many years. Understanding that Linda's treatment of me reflected her own psychological damage rather than any deficiency in my character or worthiness was crucial for my healing process. While this understanding did not excuse her behavior or eliminate the need for accountability, it helped me separate my sense of self-worth from the emotional abuse I had endured and begin developing healthier patterns of thinking about relationships and family dynamics. My decision to pursue forgiveness was made for my own peace and healing rather than to provide Linda with comfort or redemption. Forgiveness meant releasing the anger and resentment that were continuing to poison my emotional well-being, not excusing Linda's behavior or welcoming her back into my life. This distinction was important for maintaining appropriate boundaries while still allowing myself to move forward without being consumed by justified rage. Rebuilding relationships with extended family members who had been kept away by Linda's manipulation proved to be one of the most rewarding aspects of my healing journey. Discovering that I had always been loved and valued by relatives who had been prevented from expressing that affection directly helped counteract decades of feeling unwanted and rejected. These new relationships provided models for healthy family dynamics and emotional support for my ongoing healing process. My father's ongoing efforts to make amends through consistent action rather than just words represented a significant change in his approach to our relationship. His commitment to therapy, regular communication, and prioritizing my emotional needs demonstrated genuine accountability for his failures as a parent. While forgiveness for 3 decades of neglect was a gradual process, his sustained efforts to rebuild trust created the foundation for a healthier relationship than we had ever previously experienced. The wisdom I gained from surviving and eventually escaping systematic psychological manipulation included developing skills for recognizing emotional abuse, setting appropriate boundaries in relationships, and trusting my own perceptions even when others attempt to convince me that my reality is inaccurate. These skills proved valuable not only for my personal healing, but also for helping other family members recognize and resist similar manipulation in their own relationships. My 29th birthday celebration, the first genuine family celebration of my life, was simultaneously joyful and heartbreaking as I experienced what I had been denied for 3 decades while grieving for the child who had spent so many birthdays feeling forgotten and unloved. The celebration included elements that Linda had secretly planned over the years, finally presented directly rather than hidden away as tools of psychological manipulation. As I reflect on this incredible journey from systematic emotional abuse to genuine family love and acceptance, I am amazed by my own resilience and the power of truth to transform even the most damaged relationships. While I cannot recover the 3 decades of love and celebration that were stolen from me, I can appreciate the strength I developed through surviving psychological manipulation and use that strength to build healthier relationships and protect others from similar abuse. The difference between family by blood and family by choice became clear through this experience, as I learned that genuine love requires action and consistency rather than genetic connection or legal obligation. The family members who fought for truth and supported my healing demonstrated authentic love through their choices, while those who prioritized their own comfort over justice revealed the limitations of blood relationships without corresponding emotional commitment. Looking toward the future, I am hopeful about continued healing and the development of authentic relationships built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care rather than manipulation and control. My 30th birthday is approaching, and for the first time in my life, I know it will be celebrated with joy and love rather than hidden away as a tool of psychological warfare. If you have experienced similar family dynamics or recognize patterns of emotional manipulation in your own relationships, I hope my story encourages you to trust your perceptions and seek support from professionals and healthy relationships that can provide perspective and assistance. Psychological abuse thrives in secrecy and isolation, but truth and authentic connection have the power to heal even decades of systematic emotional damage. What family traditions or celebrations mean the most to you, and how do you think families should handle conflicts about inclusion and belonging? Have you ever experienced situations where good intentions were manipulated to cause harm? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video if my story resonated with your own experiences with family dynamics. Subscribe for more stories about resilience, healing, and the power of truth to transform relationships, and share this video with anyone who might benefit from.